Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to Hearthstone. So we only need to use the hero power three times and we're done. So we're just going to play ranked in standard mode. So that means we don't have the most amount of opportunities. And I wouldn't want to play Battle Cry here because this is a level 60 character anyway. So we'll do Overload and just play here and see if we can get some victories. One of the things that occurred to me is I'm looking at half of my news stories, and that's the real reason why we're still doing an extra recording here. I really don't have time to do extra recordings, and nor do I really even need extra Hearthstone videos. But one concept certainly to keep in mind is the concept of I could hold the half of the board of news things and just erase the things that I've already talked about because I'm not using a digital white blackboard anymore. So it's not just one button that erases everything. And I suppose in a silly way this kind of just goes to show that the concept of a digital blackboard is actually not as good as a regular blackboard. In fact, it failed on many levels. Not everything needs electronics in it, honestly. People think that would be helpful, and maybe if you had a whiteboard that could take a picture and do some OCR on it, and then put that in a computer, that's cool. But in the core of it, you need to just be able to put a dry erase marker on your on the thing and actually just draw on it. And if none of the electronics work because the battery is dead, it should still work. And they have been working on devices that do actually act that way. But and I keep my eyes on it, particularly for like hand drawing things and having it scanned in. And the problem is these things are always really, really expensive, way more expensive than you would think they should be. Well, let's hope this works. Moving on. Well, Yandere Simulator's developer, his last video was talking about ways in which he could speed up the progression of his game, and frankly, it just again felt like an admission that he couldn't really get the game done. It was just never going to happen. One of the things he suggested in his previous video was to partner with a company. Well, it turns out Tiny Build Games has decided and agreed to partner with him. And in all honesty, I'm starting to wonder if maybe he had already had that and his poll asking people if that was a good idea was just kind of fake. Oh, he wasn't going to listen to it anyways. Because he didn't listen to it, by the way. Because people, I think overwhelmingly on the poll, told him not to work with a company. Because the way he described working with a company, which it wasn't entirely inaccurate, was pretty negative. So I have been saying that it is a very interesting, just long-term investigative piece to watch him in the development of his game, because it was more very much that he was telling people stories, interesting stories, instead of actually making a game that would ever be finished. that kind of has changed now because Tiny Build is going to hire a team of programmers to clean up his programming, and actually they're going to have some influence. Now, inherently, I wonder if this isn't one of those percentage deals where they're getting a percentage of ownership of the IP, although he did say he was retaining control of the IP. That might be because he owns 55%, and then they're just going to wait for him to need a few more percentage points of to sell a few more percentage points uh, for some more funding. But let's say that Tiny Build isn't actually being nefarious here, and honestly, it wouldn't be that nefarious to take the game out of the hands of Yandere Dev, because frankly he doesn't know what he's doing. He needed to just be a creator, credited as a creator. Kind of like how a scriptwriter for a movie isn't the producer or the director of the movie. He needs to be the scriptwriter of the game, not the producer or the director. And frankly, he's just not even the right. He's not in the right mentality, frankly, to make the game. He changes things. He changes his mind. He whines and complains about being banned on Twitch. He makes things public that totally shouldn't be public. So he's just not mature enough for it. But this is interesting to me because it looks like this game might actually get made, and that would be very surprising. A very surprising ending to this, because almost certainly what was going to happen was this was just going to get dragged on and on and on. Now, of course, we've had similar things in the past where somebody who is unqualified to make a game starts a Kickstarter. Allison Road is a great example of this. Allison Road was trying to be this PT replacement, since PT is never going to be made, and it looked good in the demo, and then the company that was partnering with them decided to not partner with them, and that pretty much ended it. And then I think he may have come back and said he's going to continue to work on Allison Road, but yeah, I wouldn't hold my breath to ever see that game come out. And so maybe Tiny Build Games, which only has like 3 or 4 games under its title, I believe. I don't think there's a bunch of them. They're going to change how they sell it, because they were kind of giving it away for free, and now they're going to sell it in early access and try to make some money there. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the idea there alone. So they make their money back from development in the process of developing it, and they make a little bit of profit even if it never actually gets finished. I have a real hard time believing, though, that game ever comes out and we see like a giant bomb quick look of a final version of Yandere Simulator. I mean, he was talking about changing the name completely at one time, and that went nowhere. Moving on, new graphics were presented for Borderlands 3, or the way Borderlands 3 looks. It looks a little less cartoony. The colors are a bit more muted, but it still has the general concept of looking at it. It feels a little bit more like Fallout now than a bright, colorful, cartoony violence of Borderlands 1 and 2. But it's mostly still the same very recognizable Borderlands aesthetic. I assume as they're working on it that the graphics are better too. What this inherently does is it finally kicks me in the butt to start playing Borderlands, because now that they're showing things, I wouldn't be surprised if Borderlands 3 gets announced for a year from now, uh, and we and comes out like right on time. The only game that Gearbox has right now is they kind of got screwed over on Battleborn because of Battleborn in itself wasn't a great game, but they got screwed over just in timing by the fact of Overwatch coming out right around it. Um, so they really didn't make their money back from that, and they're going to re-release and publish Bulletstorm, but that's only going to make them a little bit of profit. Bulletstorm in itself has some problems that people are gonna quickly remember in the storyline, unless they redid the story, which I wouldn't be super upset if they did redo the story to Bulletstorm and just redid the dialogue. You don't have to change the gameplay too much to just put some different lines of dialogue in there. So yeah, I need to start playing Borderlands, and I'm not sure if I'm really gonna get Borderlands 2, and Borderlands the pre-sequel all played in a quickly and fast expanse. Inherently, what it probably implies is I'm gonna have to bite the bullet and play it kind of like I did Skyrim in the same time slot, and so that's gonna kind of drastically change that time slot into these super long experiences, and I'll have to do it like right after I do Star Wars: The Force Unleashed, or I'll put it in a different time slot. I don't know. I guess I probably should put The Force Unleashed in the Skyrim time slot, and then conversely put Borderlands in the other time slot. Let's see. Deal 3 damage. If I do anything, it won't work. The Fire Lord calls. Let's see. This. The Hearthstone director was pressured to rap. I have that written down, and then I have comma, this isn't news. Because it really isn't news at all. But it does bring out an interesting thought to me personally, as I'm trying to make things try to be a better news reporter myself. Every article I have to look at and say, is this actually news, or is this just an example of people being silly and trying to make a news story when there isn't one? Damage to this guy. And with Twitter and everything, you can follow people who sometimes say something newsworthy. Randy Pitchford is, I guess, a great example. The head of Gearbox. He sometimes says something newsworthy, but a lot of times he's just tweeting personal things, or talking about his brother-in-law's restaurant, Nordvania Cafe, and so shelling that. Speaking of which, the new FCC chairman has killed net neutrality. That's bad for the video game world, almost certainly. But that wouldn't be the FTC commission, which I think is the people who would probably sue people for not explaining that they were paid to make sponsored content, or the not disclosing that their brother-in-law owns their cafe, which is maybe he has. I mean, I'm not throwing out allegations. As far as I know, everything he's done is perfectly within the bounds of the law. It just doesn't. I don't see that hashtag sponsored every time he talks about it, so I could certainly understand why people would feel like he's not disclosing things. Let's see. Speaking of is this news, Ubisoft has bought this cell phone game company that makes a game called Growtopia. And then I have next to that, news question mark. Technically that is news. Is it important news? Not really. It's almost certainly the case that Ubisoft is simply just buying it to make a few dollars on their quarterly sales returns. I mean, unless they bought the company to hire some employees out of it or something like
You
that.
shall not pass.
It doesn't to me seem like Ubisoft is going to become this hugely cell phone focused games company. I mean, Ubisoft is huge, and it's like saying Microsoft bought a McDonald's franchise somewhere. They probably did it for just silly investment reasons, not for major changes in their company reasons. And in fact, we kind of know that's the case because Ubisoft's owned company, Massive Entertainment, creators of The Division, announced that they're making a game based on James Cameron's Avatar. Now, I've never actually bothered to sit through Avatar. I've seen it on TV several times, and it looks to me like it's a pretty bland, to use the common complaint Ferngully ripoff. It doesn't seem like there's anything super super special about the story or anything, so it almost, I would guess, it's probably James Cameron pushing for this project more than anybody, because I think James Cameron, if I recall correctly, was trying to have a video game made of that for a while, and there's going to be a new Avatar game, so this might just be a movie tie-in for the new Avatar movie. So I would not be surprised if that's all this is. This is very much a tie-in to the next movie. Attack here. The Indiana Jones Fate of Atlantis LucasArts point-and-click adventure had a fan remake, which I think I recall seeing this announced only a year or two ago, and so some fans were trying to remake it pretty much without any permission whatsoever of Lucasfilms, and the now owned by Disney Lucasfilms has finally sent him a cease and desist letter. Honestly, if I didn't make the argument when I first talked about this, which I think I did, but whatever, it's pretty obvious. Don't do this. Don't waste your programming talents and abilities, even if you're doing a fan project, on trying to remake a license that you aren't going to get permission from. Because now almost all your effort is down the toilet. You would have been better off making a new Montana James game. That's a name I just made up. Montana James. It's not Indiana. It's not Jones. Montana James and the fate of Underwater Land. And if you just did a parody spoof of it, you would have at least a slightly better chance of not getting a cease and desist letter, and at least fighting a cease and desist letter. The thing about cease and desist always is it's really just a letter. You can choose to not listen to it or acknowledge it at all. You're not ready to the lawsuit stage at that point. The next thing that would happen is a sheriff would knock on your door and hand you a subpoena or a lawsuit or something like that when you're actually getting sued. So you could roll your chances, but if somebody's paid a lawyer to make a cease and desist, they probably are also willing, likely at least, to pay a lawyer to start legal proceedings at least, if not take it all the way. So, like, cease and desists aren't really something you should ignore, but you kind of could. But I mean, at the end of the day, if it was Montana James and the fate of Underwater Land, and it was just a parody and not a rip-off, not a remake of something that we love, that would be better for them. Now, what this might say, although I doubt it because of Disney and LucasArts and Lucasfilms, is that they actually are going to try to make a remake themselves, which would be interesting because the Fate of Atlantis in particular is not available for sale on Steam. I have, well, maybe it is.
Job's done.
I have Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, and I have Indiana Jones and the maybe I do have Fate of Atlantis on Steam. Maybe it is for sale on Steam. That only makes it worse, doesn't it? That if it actually is for sale and they were making a remake, I think it might be. I wish I could check my Steam account. I know I have 2 Indiana Jones LucasArts games, and for the life of me, I don't think they did a Temple of Doom one. I'm pretty sure. Let me know in the comments if they did, because that would be nice to find out. Let's see. This.
I can see what is to come. I can see what is to come.
Attack. So yeah, maybe they are doing a remake, maybe not. Maybe they're already making the money from the sales that are happening here. More than likely, it's just Disney trying to protect its copyright like crazy. The GTX 1080 Ti is out. It's lowering the prices of the GTX 1080 in general. So man, I gotta kind of hurry. Still, but I think I'm gonna probably wait for the next generation with the 3D RAM. The 1080 Ti at $600 is a very expensive video card. Yes, it would be the best. It's better than the Titan X Pascal slightly, although some of the things it has like less VRAM in it, which may be important or not. But it is also cheaper than the Titan X Pascal too, by about $300. It's a very, very expensive thing though, and I'm just not sure I'm quite ready to invest in that. The Lego games lagging and the Resident Evil 4 lagging, I'm pretty sure are problems with those games in particular. And when I throw those two out, what else do I need a new video card for right now? Is it so I can go play Witcher 3 with slightly better graphics? I don't really even have a new game right now. And yes, I would like to upgrade with the next generation, and I'd like to get away from the 970, which is starting to fall off the point where it is particularly the best. It's starting to fall off as the minimal required in the recommended list of games, and so I want to get ahead of the curve there, and I want to go from a 970 to an 80 something, if that makes any sense. I want to upgrade to an 80 series instead of a 70. I don't know that they're ever going to really make a 90 series. It seems kind of like they don't make 90s. Instead, they go with Titans and Titan X's and things like that instead, which is fine. So I think I'm just gonna wait on that one, but it is out and it's lowering the price of video cards, so maybe eventually I'll just find a sell for a 1080 regular and go from a 970 to a 1080 for $300 or $400 instead. That is a possibility. Let's see if I do. No, I gotta do this. And I didn't play right there. I should have done something different. Oh well. Agony has put out some new videos. It actually looks like a video game now. My previous criticism of the game was that it didn't really look like it was a video game. It looked like you were just wandering around being chased by this demon with female boobs, which that's still in the game. Which it really doesn't make a lot of sense. This demon is scaled and has horns and looks barely human at all, except for in the chest area where it's just pure human flesh, boobs and nipples. In fact, in this new one, it seems like there's more people sitting around that you can possess or beat up on. In fact, it kind of looks like Bioshock without a gun, because it seems like with one hand you do a spell and the other hand you do an even more powerful spell, and it's telekinesis style attacks. So there's a lot of that, and with the more human people around that you can possess, it does seem like there's I couldn't ever get a clear look, but it looked like some of them were females that might be naked again. And there was another demon with a butt and an exposed human butt too. It seems like they're going crazy in sensationalism. But before it was just this hide and seek thing, and there was like no gameplay at all. You weren't picking up things, you weren't opening doors, you weren't solving puzzles. Yeah, here I saw trailers where you actually had to solve a puzzle, you actually were picking up collectibles, you were being given tasks, you were actually interacting. So it does look like a game. The problem now, unfortunately, is it doesn't really look like anything that's that special. It's a pretty bland looking game that we've seen many times before. It looks good, but also it's doing this sensationalism with being horror and sexuality. And so now that it's gotten past the point where I thought, well, this is just going to be a Kickstarter project that never goes anywhere, it's now to the point, well, this probably is going to be a game, but it's probably not going to be that good. So they have to climb their next mountain now and put an amazing story in there and have at least a decent justification for the nudity parts, at least just a decent justification for the violence. otherwise, it's just going to be kind of like The Binding of Isaac, which honestly, The Binding of Isaac is a great game, and it can get away with having dark imagery, but I would bet anybody $100 that if you took The Binding of Isaac and just made a regular game out of it that didn't have dark religious based satanic imagery and things, you would get more sales. It would just appeal to more people. I've specifically talked to people and said this game is really good, and they're just like, well, I'm never gonna play it. Like, they take one look at it and they turn their heads, they turn away, and they're not gonna give it a second thought. And I think Agony, in a lot of ways, is gonna have to be a great game like Binding of Isaac to get around that. Otherwise, it's not going to get around that, and very few people are going to play it, except for streamers who are going to try to play it and possibly get banned. That's one of those games like Honey Pop where I very well may play it because, one, I want to play it, and two, because it might get me more views for being provocative, but then it would make a lot of extra work on censoring. Like, just a lot of work there. And that's kind of the problem with Conan Exiles too. They've still got lots of time, and hopefully they put a good game in there. A YouTube app is coming to Comcast Xfinity, and that is good for YouTube and good for YouTube streamers like me. We want to see apps like that on more cable boxes, because that would be helpful to us to get more of an audience. Also, YouTube's $35 streaming TV service. I don't know if I talked about that before, but like, as it goes, it's either going to help YouTubers like me or it's going to hurt YouTubers. It muddies the field in a lot of ways. I saw some more about it from Philip DeFranco, who hopefully his information is accurate. I should watch the video. I haven't gotten around to watching the announcement video directly from YouTube, but one of the thoughts they're thinking about is after you watch a TV series, all around the edges there will be recommended links to YouTube videos talking about that TV episode. So if somebody just watched Walking Dead, it would recommend a bunch of Walking Dead YouTube videos. Who's to say that for some small percentage of people who just watch Walking Dead on TV, they don't see my Walking Dead gameplay? And maybe that gets me more games. The scary part about this is anytime YouTube does anything, it's always about getting more money and dealing with bigger people. It's never about remembering where they came from and their small-time streamers. So at the end of the day, does this take a step towards YouTube getting rid of original content creators and just becoming a TV thing? Are they going to start kicking partners out? Not anytime soon, surely, but who's to say that 10 years down the line, all of YouTube is nothing but TV? And if you're not on TV, then you're not seen at all.
Job done.
That's a possibility, but not likely. It's always scary when YouTube does something, but $35 for streaming TV is interesting to me. Also, just so I'm not paying I renegotiated barely got a savings of about $80 a month for my TV bill, and I want to get rid of it completely. Wonder Boys 3 remake, which Wonder Boy 3 remake lets you use your old passwords. So it's a remake of a Sega Master System game and so the saves were passwords. And since they're making a remake of it, they're not changing the passwords, which is kind of this weird cross-generational thing, but it's cool. Uh, Wonder Boy 3 was the game that I thought was a brand new game until I found out uh, it wasn't. So that I could have definitely misspoken there, but I caught myself. And then finally, the follow-up to Layers of Fear, the next game by that creator, is making some kind of sci-fi mind invading super cop game. So you're able to plug into the brains of people, which, okay, that kind of makes sense for Layers of Fear, because yeah, I imagine it's going to be somewhat scary of a game too, and going into the brains of psychotic people makes some sense. I wouldn't be surprised if you end up only plugging into a few people's brains, and then you spend most of the game in one person's brains in particular. So we did the Tavern Brawl in this recording session. We got all the quests done. I have finally gotten all of the things done on my news, and we went long here too and got an extra recording out of it. And now I'm gonna have to open my package to get the bigger dry erase eraser, because the only one that came with the board, I bought a second set of pins and cleaners and stuff, just a full set. The only one that comes with the board is this eraser tip on the pin itself, and boy would that take forever and probably be a mess to try to erase this entire board with a like centimeter squared circle. It can't be a centimeter squared circle, but just about that. That would take forever. Anyways, that's it for this recording session. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend to follow me on basically any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.